Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this lovely live stream on the 21st of April. I am joined on my left by Bodiago.
Hello.
There we go. Mod Brian on my right.
Hello.
And we've also got Mod Timbo and Mod Steven with voice with us.
Hello.
That would be Mod Rowley. Hi.
There you go, Mod Rowley. Jeez. Great start of a Tuesday. My apologies. Mod Rowley indeed. We are going to talk an awful lot about kind of how archaeology came about and show you a bunch of cool pictures throughout the development and all those kinds of things. But before we do that, the quick announcements of this week. Twitch Prime is live, so if you've not claimed your loot, do that, or the Twitch stuff, so definitely get that. It's a nice fancy armor, which is really cool. Currently, you can still get 25% extra anima while playing Shattered Worlds. That is because we updated it last week, and of course, there were quite a few cool new things coming with Archaeology last Monday, which included the ability to put the two items on your toolbar. I'm not gonna make a fool of myself saying them out loud because I will probably pronounce them incorrectly. If there's nothing that you guys want to add, I suggest we just jump straight into it. I can just already see the looks on both of Modiago's and Ryan's face that I was like, yes, he's definitely going to mess up. That's fine.
You would have butchered it.
Yeah, exactly. I would have butchered it. So I suggest we kind of jump straight into it. How long do we need to go back, Motimbo? Like, when do we start first talking about archaeology internally?
Well, should we explain what this stream is?
Oh yeah, if you want to go a bit more in depth about that first, go for it.
So we're going to be going through like the skills history, sort of like all the way from inception, which started in January 2018, I think. And I'll go into that a bit more detail, up until obviously the release on the 30th of March this year. But yeah, so like right at the beginning, there was a new skill. So in January 2018, I was tasked by Rod Osborne and the RuneScape leadership team to come up with a new skill to launch in summer of 2019. I don't mind saying that right now because obviously we didn't make it. So what I wanted to do right at the beginning was we never really done a proper validation process for all our new skills in the past. And what I mean by proper validation process is like seeing what do the community want, what do we want as a company, like business-wise, what do we want as a development team, like what do we want to make, what do we think is good for the game. We never really did that before. Like we ended up making a skill that a designer came up with, right? So like some or a developer, sorry. So like so someone had a cool idea for a skill, they designed it, it got approved, and it got released. But what I wanted to do was to like really try and find out what was the best skill for the game to come out at the time. So to start that, I got submissions from places. So I asked everyone at Jagex, doesn't matter if you worked on RuneScape or not, or if you were like in HR or a customer support or something. I wanted everyone to submit skill ideas.
Anywhere.
Yeah. There were some criteria. Which I don't really remember all of them, to be honest. But like, it had to be RuneScapey, it had to be interesting, it had to be fun, it had to be like, had to feel like a fit within the world. So we didn't want to have like spaceship crafting or something silly like that. We wanted to like something that
Sounds
actually felt
cool,
like
though.
very RuneScape. Yeah. Maybe that's construction to 120. But like. So I wanted to get that, and we had like hundreds of submissions from staff. I trolled Reddit, I trolled the forums, I trolled Twitter, like trying to find out what players had been suggesting themselves, like about what the next new skill could be, or next new skill ideas. So I got all those together, sort of like marked them out of 10, based on the criteria that we had, like. Was it RuneScape? Did it fit the world? Could we make a really good skill out of this and that sort of thing? And we ended up coming down to a short list of 5. And the short list of 5 skills that we had, which Mod Osborne has he put out like a little message with the influencer guys, the monolith thing. And he in that message he sort of went through this process a little bit as well. But yeah, we had 5 skills that we had a shortlist down to, and that they were archaeology, sailing, spellcrafting, animal training, and merchanting. And this was the first time that we sort of seriously considered these skills, or started seriously considering what the design of what this would look like in RuneScape. So I sat down with a bunch of RuneScape players, old school players from this company, designers from other parts of the company, like from an unannounced title, and we sat down in a pub, and we went through each of these new skills after 4 hours, like having champions from each of the different skills, pitching what that skill would be in RuneScape, and sort of like trying to like really sell the other designers and the other people, the other stakeholders that were there, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about spellcrafting? What could you do there? What do you think about merchanting? And that sort of thing. And we would basically pitch them to the RuneScape players and the old school players that were there. I think Ryan was there. Were you there, Ryan?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and trying to get their like raw reactions to it. So like, if they were like, I don't like this. This seems really shit. Like, we'd be like, okay, cool. Like, we'll like, what don't you like about it? How can we improve it and stuff? And we sort of went away from there. So carry on.
No, I was going to ask Ryan, how was that to be part of a meeting like that, where it's just in a pub fighting over ideas, kind of? Because you were organising this, Timbo. So
I mean, we weren't really fighting. It was more. It was more just. Yeah, it was interesting because, as Timbo mentioned, there was a good group of us from different like areas of the company, or different design backgrounds, or different like play styles. Because some of the people there played RuneScape like casually, aggressively. It was an interesting group. I think I imagine Timbo handpicked the group. But yeah, no, that was good fun. It was interesting because seeing the diverse opinions on, like, for example, archaeology is great, and then other people saying no, we hate archaeology. That didn't happen, but just as an example. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It does lead me on to something that Mod also mentioned in his message that he put with the influencer pack, was that archaeology was not the top skill. Oh, sorry, necromancy was in that list as well. There were 6 skills. God, I almost forgot about that. Archaeology was not the top skill. We came out of that meeting, 4-hour meeting at the pub after a few beers, and archaeology was not the top skill. The top skill was easily necromancy, but like,
which wasn't even in your top 5.
No, it wasn't even in my top 5. I keep disregarding it for reasons. But like, so yeah, like,
Right, sorry.
we came away. Sorry, carry on. What's up?
No, sorry, it was just to say, not your top 5, the top 5. Like, we can't put this on you.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
sorry. Yeah, we had disregarded necromancy from a design point of view because we didn't think there was much room for it. It sits too closely to summoning, and it either sits too close to summoning, or sits too close to prayer, or sits too close to magic. And we weren't looking to make an elite skill. I know some people will be like, "Well, to make an elite skill out of those 3 skills," and it's like, we didn't want this skill to be an elite skill. That was one of our aims. So we ended up disregarding necromancy out of our top 5.
Okay.
But yeah, archaeology wasn't the top skill. Sailing was quite high, even though it had all the meme going against it. People really liked the idea of spellcrafting. Like, it sounded very interesting. Like, if this was a different game, like hand picking and making elements of your own skills would be really interesting. God, there was a mod in Minecraft I played called Thorncraft that was really good for that sort of stuff. That was my inspiration for what I was thinking to do with spellcrafting. But yeah, we went away, and then I wrote like a bunch of pitches for each of the skills, and we came together as a leadership group with Ryan and some of the people as well, and we said we're going to pick between archaeology and sailing. We think we have really the 2 strongest ideas we have are archaeology or sailing, and we really wanted to, like, they fit all of our aims, they fit all of our needs. We both felt very passionately well, I know that Steve felt very passionate. Sorry, Mod Rowley felt very passionate about sailing.
I think
me and Ryan felt very passionate about archaeology because we tried to make it our own spare time before this came about.
Okay.
So carry on, Mod
We
Rowley.
had one of the producers just inform us that someone has a bit of cutlery in the background, so that's why we all just went silent for a second. But please keep going. What,
Want to say something, Rowley?
Oh, no, you go for it.
Okay, cool. But like, so yeah, like that was the formation. That was like, for timeline wise, this was between January and the sort of summer months of that year. I don't know exactly the amount of time, but like, most of my life was consumed by trying to make sure we get the right skill, or we get the right aims for the skill, and then we get the right skill that we wanted to get forward. And I think sort of some of that year is when our next bit was when we were like deciding between archaeology and sailing, and that's when we started the Google Design Sprint, I think.
Where does the survey fit into that? Is that also in that period where we were deciding to figure out the skill?
No, that comes later. Unless you did surveys even later. For those.
We did surveys. Yeah. We did surveys during that time to see which skill a select number of players preferred. That was Mod Searcher that did that sort of stuff. And again, the data we kept coming back was archaeology is all right. It's a bit dull, isn't it? Why don't we do necromancy? Why don't we do spellcrafting? And that's why we were like, it's kind of funny to say it now because I think archaeology has been quite successful. But like archaeology in January, like in like the early 2018, was such a bad word for our marketing team, and like everyone was just like, it's such a dry, boring, digging up dirt skill that we ended up having to really fight for it, to be honest.
Well, that was the thing there, right? So because like archaeology as a term on its own, they were concerned that it did not sound exciting per se, and like the associations that people had with the word archaeology. Basically, it was like, oh, this is Time Team. Like, although Time Team's great, you'll notice that's why Guildmaster's called Tony. But like, it conjures up a lot of like brushing away an artifact for like days at a time, or like musty old scrolls and museum cases and stuff like that. I'll come on to like how we managed to like transform archaeology, and like one of our driving visions during the design for the skill was like, we want to make this fantastical, right? We want to make this RuneScape's version of archaeology, not just digging out a hole in the ground and like excavating it and surveying it for like absolutely ages, which we do in real archaeology. We wanted to make it fantastical. We wanted, like, one of my favorite pictures was just like, we're gonna have 5 dig sites, and one of them's gonna be in hell, and one of them's gonna be in the sky. And you're like, what? I'm gonna do archaeology in the sky? What the hell are you talking about? And that's why it gets people's imaginations going. And that's what we wanted to do with the skill. Like, it's more fantastical, more magical, more RuneScape at its core. Like, for me, the skill bleeds RuneScape in terms of like how much it fits into the world, the design ethos behind the core loop, the way it integrates with our storyline, which everyone's grasped onto. Yeah. All right. Cool.
I talked a lot.
Do you wanna? Yeah, I mean, I do genuinely find it interesting. Yeah. Shall we dig into pictures? Just before we go, I saw a couple of messages about the Inquisitor stuff pieces. Are you able to answer that or elaborate a little bit on that quickly, Ryan?
Yeah, sure. So earlier today we deployed a hotfix to change some of the rates for the Inquisitor staff and the Spear of Annihilation. As with everything that we've been doing, we've been monitoring the skill, all the items coming into the game, looking at the numbers, etc., etc. And we felt that it was right to make it a small change. So to be specific for what has changed, so correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, it shouldn't be, but so currently the Praetorian staff pieces are obtainable while the pylon is active. That is still the same. However, the rate of receiving a staff piece while in the fortress is the rarity is massively increased, and by massively I mean like extremely increased. However, the rate inside of the Praetorium is a much better rate than that of the main fortress, and that rate of getting a staff piece while in the Praetorium increases for each of the hotspots. So there's the 107 hotspot, the 114, and the 118 spot. So between those three, your chance of getting a piece massively increases is between the three of them. And then, and when the pylon is active while in the Praetorium, those spots are even better as well. So what that means is the staff is only obtainable outside the Praetorium when the pylon is active. The staff pieces are always obtainable inside the Praetorium, but there is an increased chance for the higher level spot and an increased chance if the pylon is active. So that is, hopefully that's everything.
Cool. Yeah.
And the Spear of Annihilation. And we also increased the rarity of the Spear of Annihilation. Same deal as the staff pieces. We've been looking at how many pieces are coming into the game and sort of adjusting if we feel necessary, just to make sure that the long-term health of those items stays as we expect them to be. But again, we'll continue to monitor it over the next, forever ultimately, but definitely more thoroughly over the next few weeks, and let you guys know if we're changing anything else.
Cool. All right. Modiago, we've got this lovely image. Are you able to? What are we seeing here? Because I don't think this looks like anything we've currently got in game.
Sure. Yeah. So this was at the bit Timber was just mentioning, where we went into just shortly after the Google Design Sprint. We started planning out. Some playable demos. And this is what this is, and it's basically what you would get from an entire dig site right now. So if we take Everlight for example, you can go to a dig spot, you can excavate from it, you can get your artifacts and whatnot and restore them, and then they can be used for things. And you basically experience an entire site in about 20 minutes instead of like right now, obviously, that you start like Everlight at 42, and I think you can complete all the mysteries at 105. So you get a really short experience of what the skill could have to offer, and we're able then to get feedback, see what mechanics people don't like, what they do, if the excavation part is just too dull, or is the finds is what you discover when excavating exciting enough, and do the items you get from it need more value than we do, and we can basically get an understanding of all of that from a short demo, really, and that kind of just helped build our other sites, and how like one site would have something else to offer compared to something to another. So I mean,
God,
we'll see a few more screenshots. I think
again,
it was, yeah.
Were they all the materials we had in the demo? Seems like a lot.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are all the materials. And I think we had 3 artifacts.
Yeah, this sword being one of them, which I think ended up in effectively ended up in the release tutorial.
Oh yeah, that's
that
right.
one. Oh, yeah,
that's the same one.
So,
this is jumping ahead.
Yeah, this is a little bit. But yeah, this part is almost like your mystery part, where you'll have things to research, and then the concept of research anyway, understanding that big yellow block you can see is like a mural, a placeholder one, of course.
I think back when we did this, I think we were referring to these spaces as lost areas. These are kind of like the hidden parts of dig sites now.
Yes, yeah.
But
we had that concept of the big door outside, didn't we? And what you did was you used the projects outside to be able to work out how to get in. And obviously you can see that actually follow through to the Caradet entrance, where you get the seal to break through. You also have the artifact in Everlight to get into the that underwater area, and so on. Yeah.
To add a bit of context, like this is like a very early demo, which was mainly to figure out what did work, what didn't work, but also to convey to the rest of the RuneScape team to like what the skill would look like, right?
Yeah,
So-
it gave us that opportunity very early on to have like the entire company or whoever was really interested to play through the skill, and give us the feedback early, whilst we have that chance to make drastic changes without having too much of an impact on potential release dates.
Because many of the things you see, or some of the things you see on these pictures, obviously have made it into the game, and obviously others haven't. So, and that's because we, for all kinds of reasons, we decided in the end not to do some of these things. But I think it's showing these,
This made it in. We had this.
Yes.
I don't know why, but doors were very important to us back then. We had a big door on the outside, elaborate. In fact, I think big doors. We have to have big doors was something we were talking about back here. But that made it into the skill.
So these are some more
as well.
images. Go for
I
it.
was just going to say, so these images are all images we basically pulled from our sort of like group chat and various pictures we've saved over time. So you'll notice there are a lot of they're not like perfectly cut screenshots or anything. They're just images we've had to attach to Jira jobs or send them to each other. But that's actually quite nice because you get to see, the sorts of things. Like some of these images are actually annotated. You'll see like labels saying like we should move this, like level design reasons, as well as some labels for things that are broken in the image. Sorry to interrupt you, James.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, one of the projects we just saw a minute ago was the sword, and in that last screenshot, you were you saw that there's the two guards there, and there's one missing. And when you get in, you then need you're like, okay, these two guys have a sword. I mean, this is not a hard puzzle, but it's the concept of quite simple puzzles and using the artifacts.
It's the Infernal Source puzzle, kind of now, right? Isn't it?
It crops up a fair bit in the skill, actually. I mean, from this particular demo, the feedback we got from playtests internally, and a few players visited for some as well. Even bad examine text. There you go. It's all here. But we got some really critical feedback on that very early on, and that's why we've kind of been able to play with it for the full build. Sorry, carry on.
Are we just gonna get all kinds of examine text now? I'm loving this.
Yeah, I don't think we have too many, to be honest, but there's two of them.
I don't put as
keep
much
it on
effort
this
in
page
when
for a
it
second
doesn't
as
get
well.
released.
So like this one, I think this. Some people might be wondering, but why is it like all kind of pastel colors and all that stuff, and not very high detail? Because that's in no means reflective of what it looks right now.
I think we hashed this demo together in like 2 weeks or something. Every team pulling together.
Yeah, this image specifically is a good example actually of the very early concepts of like what would a dig site look like, and you'll notice that we actually moved away from making the area look like a dig site as much and making the area like the cool, like what are you actually in? So for example, you are you're in the Infernal Source, so there's not a lot of scaffolding and like cranes and that sort of stuff like them further in. This is quite like heavy duty. There's clearly a dig site here versus what we kind of went with in the end, which was less of that and more of the fantastical.
Well, and at the same time, it allows the people who were playing it to focus more on like how it felt and give good feedback on that, right? Because if it looked amazing at the same time, then we would probably be giving much more feedback on how it looked, whereas that was not specifically the thing at that time. We were looking for feedback for an awful lot, right?
That's the fair point. Yeah, it helps people to focus more on the mechanisms and the concepts rather than the art if you do it this way. Yeah.
Oh wow, this is a beautiful piece of concept art from that time.
Let's paint over so we could like start to look into art requirements.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, they match perfectly. So this is a relatively common thing to do, right? We make something and then we paint over it to how it could look or how we want it to look, and then we kind of go back again, isn't it?
Yeah. However, it does sound like, as I would say, we could talk about it, but I feel like we could say that for the art stream, the art guys could talk to you a lot about this sort of
absolutely,
stuff.
makes sense. I just like to call that from the design perspective a little bit. So
There's the Borderlands version of the Dark Dixo.
nice. I like it.
These help you get a sense of scale, of course, as well, right? Like, and something we try to add a bit more recently in our environments is that scale.
I mean, just to follow up as well, it is actually a vault here. This was called the Vaults of Herodotus, I believe. It was kind of like an early version of Caridet, and the big circular door in the background was the entrance to the vault. But it follows up with the Borderlands point perfectly.
and just to add a bit of perspective, what time, like how long ago or how early in design are we talking when we see all these images? Is it just after we kind of? Is it still in the very early prototyping kind of phase?
Basically, we
September.
You get it, Ryan. You get it.
Yeah, sorry. It's really hard because I swear we're really delayed. So this is back in September 2018, I think. So it's actually like really early on. It's like it's right at the beginning. This is us, like we said, testing proof of concept. In that specific demo where you saw some game clips, we actually had this concept that when you find items, they're dirty and you have to go and clean them first before you could do anything with them. So if you take what archaeology is to you now, and you think about every single thing you found, if you had to clean it, quite a crazy example of, and I'm sure you know why we didn't do it now. A bit odd, but that's just a thing that was there.
Okay.
So actually, can we pause on this image for a second?
Go for it.
So just this is inside the lost area. So this is inside the vault. And what we'd also done as part of this demo was we started to put in the idea of mysteries. And this one, you can see this is kind of like our Indiana Jones moment with the golden statue on the kind of pressure plate at the back. And we had these 3 columns that lead up to it. There was like this little height-based puzzle where you could change the heights of these columns to form this pathway. That was pretty cool. But yeah, carry on. There you go, a big door again. This is animated, but I don't think we've got the animation working right now.
Can I ask the chat a question? Luke, is that good? I'm curious.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm curious to know if the chat would rather we like zoom through images and talk about them like quickly, or to stick on images a lot longer, because we actually have a lot and there's no way we'll be able to go through them. Not sure what they'd rather.
The answer is yes. So I don't know.
I think
Zoom.
If we rattle through it, we can always go into more detail on Twitter or Reddit or whatever for anything that
if there is an interesting one. Yeah, and if there is an interesting one, feel free to say ask if we can have it for a little bit longer as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is that cleaning thing that I was referring to earlier. You have these little spots. I mean, yeah, that's a pretty good early prototype you can see here. There's the screening sections like up the little hill, the sandy floor. You used to go over there and screen your soil. Yeah, that's that image. Just a fancier version, yeah.
Yeah, paint over of the lost area.
I'd say if we don't say that much, producer, just okay. We're going to switch to our second folder of images. So give us a second. Oh, there we go. Let me sit nice and straight. I was going in relax mode as well. I was like, ooh. That was good. We're loading up the second batch, and then we'll be jumping right in. We had a lot of images. We've kind of grouped them in a couple of batches, so we could bring them up if required.
Did we want to say what we're making the demo for? Or?
Sorry, say it again?
Skip that one if you can. I'd probably skip that.
Yeah, we talked about
that.
People are asking.
Did we want to talk about what we're making the demo for?
Yeah, go for it. If while we're waiting, we might as well.
So we're making it. We had like a very early design of the core loop and stuff, But we were making the demo in September of 2018 to try and break the RuneFest of that year. We ended up obviously not doing it because we didn't bring it along with us, which is a shame. But yeah, that was part of the reason why we were making the demo at that time and why we were rushing around trying to get it ready and stuff.
Cool.
But we did end up having a bunch of playtests internally with that demo.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. It wasn't wasted work at all.
Was still very valuable. Cool.
Anyway, I think we let Ryan talk about this.
This is yours.
Sure. I didn't think we were including these images, but that's okay.
We can leave it as a teaser and just skip past all this if you like.
No, it's fine. I mean, so what I was looking at here was I was looking a bit more at like random generation and creating basically lost areas, which would have bonus doors, and those doors would say require certain artifacts to open. Less like what you think that you see in dungeoneering, but more the concept that you wouldn't notice that it's sort of like a maze. What I have here is me prototyping with various different bits of environment that we already had. So I used some from Shattered Worlds and some from some other bits of content, but ultimately it was just investigating, merging together various map pieces and how we can create different shapes and sizes. The different icons as well, they actually meant something to me, not so much to you guys, but the icons were representing like what sort of room that was. Like I think a fishing icon just meant it's a normal room, and that icon there specifically means that room's like a bonus room. But yeah, there's just a couple of images. These were not that relevant, not that useful to you guys. Oh, there you go. There's a better example. So all the fish rooms are normal rooms. The armor, the clothes shop, they're bonus. So you'd have to actually, the concept would be to use like an artifact or something to get through that door. And the S and the E is the start and the end, sort of entering and leaving. Yeah, just a bunch of, like I said, this is just some dev related stuff. Nothing too interesting in this screenshot. There's probably quite a few of these. They're just the same thing over and over, so it's probably not too interesting. That's the same layout. That's actually a good one. That's the same layout, but using 3 different like skin sets. The left being some placeholder one, the middle one's actually using shifting tombs, and the right hand side is using the Shattered Worlds stuff.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but it's fair to say the plan wasn't that we were ever going to do like procedurally generated parts of sites. It was more as a means of generating interesting spaces.
Yeah,
but then
ultimately,
ultimately, then we went on to prefer to go to properly crafted spaces, like the vaults,
yeah, I mean,
like the lighthouse.
This screenshot you literally have on screen right now was me messing with. Kind of creating like a RuneScript version of, it's basically like an in RuneScript tool to generate yourself an instance and get a fancy layout and then modify it, flip it, turn it, etc. That's all this is. It was an interesting test during our prototyping phase.
Oh, you can still kind of see it right now. If you freeze frame that bit of the screen, you can see where the church is and where the kitchens are and stuff. Sorry, the culinarium rather than the kitchen.
Such a fancy term as well.
Ah, yes. These ones get quite. This is just an example of like what things look like early on in development. So, this is when I was working on the collector's notice board. Generating a bunch of collectors on the left, and then the various collections that those collectors have. Lobster was my placeholder object. And then, so this one was expanding it a little to get into like filters. I didn't want to make the filters, like, this is the sort of thing in dev. Visually, I didn't want to make the filters like a drop down, but I made them as separate buttons. This was just a way of like helping to write all the code without making it look pretty at this stage. But yeah, this is another example. I was using the boss collections as an example at the time, because back when I was making this, we didn't have the collections, the Zerosian collections down, as you can see there, Zerosian has quite a lot more objects than I think we released with.
That's because we started with Caradet, right, and we got those assets in earlier as well.
Yeah. But yeah, this
is
just,
when we are. You go ahead.
No, it's all you, Luke.
Oh, I was just on the. This is the beginning of 2019, isn't it? When we were kind of when we started getting these kind of. I think we are back. Apologies. Something freaked out, something stressed out, probably. But we're back. I don't know to what extent you guys had it, but I was about to ask Ryan whereabouts in development we started getting these interfaces. So I suggest we pick it up from there, and we should be good.
If you could just keep scrolling through them, but this is just it was quite early on, to be honest. We knew like the general concept of things we wanted to do early on because we designed, the various things involved. So we knew we wanted collectors, and there was artifacts and this sort of deal. So we knew that we needed a way to represent that information. You can see here that this interface is slightly progressing. It is definitely progressing, even if things look like they're being removed. And there, yeah, this is a good example. Just testing some really long text. Also, nothing. Yeah, I mean, I find these screenshots interesting. I don't know about you guys, of course.
Pretty cool to look at.
It's just an example of getting
back
something
in
up
the day.
and running.
We also had many more collectors by the looks of it.
No, if you actually look, there are duplicates. I just copy pasted the same collectors to test scroll bar functionality.
And you've got different collection logs in there too, yeah, like treasure trails and boss.
I used all the old collection data as an easy way of essentially testing it out.
Cool. We're going into the next batch, I think. Again, I just like how we randomly reappear on the stream at times.
Oh, hello.
I think while you were kind of putting all these interfaces together and changing systems was when I was designing some of the content on dig sites. Is that right?
Yeah, I imagine so. The whole 18 months has kind of blurred a little into one.
That's fair. All right, carry on.
Yeah, that or you were designing and writing mysteries and all that sort of stuff.
Oh god, that was a blur when I was just writing all that lore.
But yeah, this one here, this one's actually quite what's the word? This is quite far on, as you can see. This is quite similar to what has been released. The layout is slightly different, but ultimately this is what research looked like. I was using various placeholder graphics for your researchers, as you can see, like lovely researchers.
Got a lot of
that one has it. Yeah, my Chronotes as well is the treasure trail icon. And there's a Zelda reference as the lost area access as a reward. But yeah, that's how I fill in placeholders.
I appreciate that we've got a new spam text in Twitch chat now, which is the really long name. Hey buddy, I've got a really long name, and by long name I mean really long. Let's just keep testing this, shall we? Something like that, which is quite nice.
Oh, this is a throwback. So this
relic interface.
This is a major throwback. Yeah, so when we were designing relics originally, I was also mocking up a placeholder UI for that. This is that. I use the Telos icons, the bronze, silver, and gold, and named them small, medium, and large relics. And all of those relic descriptions are copy-paste of abilities. But yeah, it's just an example. I was just setting up a general layout and just testing.
I mean, that tells you a little bit about the design as well there, because relics actually changed quite a bit, and that's how they used to work, was small, medium, and large relic sizes, and you could have. True. I think you could have one of each, and we didn't particularly like that because it was quite restrictive, and it meant that if you wanted three mediums or three smalls active at once, you couldn't. So that's when we went and then changed it onto the sort of power consumption system we use at the moment. You just got to see more of my placeholder dialogue
placeholder text that said something like some really awesome power from a faraway land. I think when I need to write text, I just write anything that I can think of at the time.
I mean, you write pretty decent placeholder text.
To be fair, that's all I do anyway.
Ooh, this is another throwback. So this is the Archaeology journal, just in a very, very early stage. You may notice it uses a placeholder skill icon, a lovely spade. It uses the Archaeology, and not the Archaeology, the Ark Islands journal as like a background. There is a spoiler, but there is 6 dig sites on there. With just testing that out, just how many dig sites we could get on a line, and different layouts, and then some research information on the right. This is all just placeholder. Something really interesting on this shot is the languages section at the bottom. So we originally had this concept, which I think we will see in the next screenshot as well, of having language for each of the cultures that you could, if you do some research, you could gain XP in like Zerosian language, or if you were to, study a mural at Caradet, you'd gain Zerosian XP, Zerosian language XP. And we were going to get to a stage where you'd require certain language levels to interact with certain things. We actually removed that concept in the end because we felt like it was, correct me if I'm wrong here as well, Rowley, but we felt like it was a good idea and it was a cool sort of like functionality, but we didn't really have a use for it. Like, we didn't want to stop you being able to read books because you didn't have the level when we're going to make you read books to level them up. So yeah, here's an example of where I actually drew the languages as actual skills. They were going to go to level 5.
I mean, at best it was an abstract mechanic anyway. It was very akin to the kind of language system in the more recent Tomb Raider games. And I think ultimately we just said people who enjoy lore, don't put a barrier to them enjoying lore. It was part of the ethos for the skill.
It was a cool idea, though. It was a cool idea to like have a different method of leveling up, like, and having to like learn more about the culture and stuff to know more about it. But yeah, we cut it because it's not as good gameplay.
Yeah. Anyway, now I think we've moved on to images of very early environments. So this, obviously, for anyone who's been there at least, the underwater part of Everlight.
Oh, fun fact for you. I can give you a fun fact as well. Originally, Everlight was going to be called Farlight. Fun fact.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that is a beautiful light tower as well.
This is Farlight. We changed it to Everlight and made it better as well.
That's a really good shot. Shows you what the Infernal Source looked like in its most basic white/grey box. Very much the white box there, and then what it looks like now. It's nice. It's really interesting to see like what the changes.
One of us is supposedly a little bit of a robot at the time. So do you know who that is?
Steve.
Someone has a phone near their mic.
Sounds like Rowley, your printer's on in the background.
If it was me, I've thrown my phone away, so it should stop.
Is it me? I've been told it's me.
This is a fun screenshot. So like, this is a fun screenshot to talk about some of the early design. So like, restoration used to require 3 different benches. Benches. So like, you know, this is at the guild. You can see on the far right hand side, you can kind of see the where you can screen soil. But like, early on, you have to restore an artifact 3 times. First you have to prepare the artifact at one of the benches. Then you move to the next bench, and that's where you.
That was assembly.
Assemble the artifact together, yeah, and then at the end you finish the artifact and get the finished artifact at the end. But we ended up simplifying it because it was kind of bollocks, to be honest.
Yeah. Could we go back a couple actually to the Infernal Source quickly? Yeah, it was just a note on here on the left. You can probably picture it a little bit better, but like really early on, unfortunately, this wasn't something we were able to do. But the intention was that it was kind of an anamorphic image as well. So if you got the camera right above, it looks like an eye. It's like the Eye of Dagon symbol writ large. But we mostly captured that. But anyway, it was an aside. Carry on.
On this next image, can the chat tell us where that is? I'm sure they can. I'm curious. I think they can if they've been there. If they've been there or they've seen screenshots.
So just to update on the robot, it's not me. I've put both my phones on flight mode, so I'm not taking responsibility for this one.
It is indeed the Everlight elevator. Oh, this screenshot's very good actually. Can you guess what this was? Because it does not look like this anymore. I think you can.
You know, I'm thinking myself, but I'm struggling.
Honestly, for a brief second there, I was like, wait, which site is that? Yeah.
Yeah, carried out. Yeah, so that's like a top-down north face. That's north facing. You'll notice that Steve, I think is your mic, but no worries. This layout hasn't really changed. We just sort of like crushed the layout together a lot more. You'll notice that there's less there's less space now in the live version, but it's still the same in that the access to the prison is on the left. You come in from the north. The chapel is down in the bottom right, which we opened up and gave more space because there's 2 sets of excavation spots there.
This was also really big, wasn't it? Did you say that?
This is huge, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that was. We shrunk it down a lot from this.
Right.
Okay, guess that one. Guess what that one is. That one should be.
It might take a minute. This one's a little bit trickier.
Oh, I have a suspicion, personally. And I was wrong.
That's got it. Yeah. You can see that in the bottom left here, this is the big animal pen area, and the forge in the middle of the screen, the big river running through, before it got dyed green.
Oh, nice.
Before swimming.
Yeah, before we flooded that area.
That one is one I can clearly recognise. It's pretty good.
We'll keep that one. If people haven't been there, I'll get to that. Sorry, if people haven't been here, we'll keep this one just on the down low. But why are there NPCs everywhere?
Yes, that was my question as well.
Yeah, the placeholder ones, we use those for when you just block out an environment. They're useful for checking lots of things like height mapping and distancing and spacing and all sorts of things like that.
So it helps give us a sense of skill and those kinds of things.
Yeah, this this was a GIF, this one, so I think maybe, but ultimately this is not a site. This is a really early on screenshot of like a test map square that I had, where I was just putting together various things to test out mechanics we wanted to do. So in this one specifically was progressing like an event to open the wall, to excavate through the wall and arrive on the other side. That's just from my test map square.
Mm-hmm.
That was also a GIF, so that's a great screenshot on its own.
I think he's just posing himself, you know.
I don't rightly recall what that one was.
That was just a test of the kit. So like putting together a cave.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We made that really lit up nicely and made it look really pretty.
I do really like the early on. What is this?
This is the current Varrock dig site, where the archaeology campus is as well.
It looks so
how it's transitioned.
Yeah. Was this even before the graphical rework of the dig site?
Yeah, this was before that. So this was, I think we did the Varrock dig site rework in April 2019 or somewhere around there, maybe June. And yeah, this was just before that graphical rework. There's a few more coming up as well.
It was
2 or
like
3.
a month or two before Anachronia, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
What was the reason we did that rework again? Was that already in preparation for archaeology or something?
Well, it was
Yes.
for Anachronia.
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
bit of
And
both.
for
As in, like,
archaeology, yeah.
yeah, we needed it done because we wanted to. Well, we already were redoing the area, but it felt like a good idea to release it ahead of Anachronia as well, because running through that area to get on a boat wouldn't have looked so pretty otherwise.
So
It
this
also
is
kind of buried the lead a little bit. Like, people didn't know at that point, I think, that we were working on archaeology as a skill. So
Yeah,
it's
we
kind
we
of
were still quiet about it.
it wasn't widely known, put it that way. Yeah.
something I did want to cover on that last screenshot was I think it's just some of the, like you'll see here. This is the section just above where you start the tutorial, and how it's actually changed now. And we actually like flipped the entrance to the other side. And even though like you might look at this picture and it's like it's final, why is it different now? Like these are some of the changes we find we absolutely need to make in development, and this one was actually quite late on. And the reason we flipped it is because this is part of the dig site quest and entering the temple, the empty throne room, and because it was so close to the where you start the tutorial, we found that like people were almost being led in that direction to the big door. So anyone who was new was just immediately getting lost on the tutorial. So we basically flipped where the entrance is, so you have to do a long loop around just so people don't get lost on the tutorial. Yeah.
This is very early white boxing of that rework as well. It's interesting to see those images now. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Look at that. It looks even prettier now. That's all I can say about it. Ooh, look at that. I'm not gonna. I just like the very low poly white box images. In all fairness, I wouldn't mind that kind of being in the game. At the same time, I do absolutely love the existing graphics, but I think there's like a charm to like this white boxing.
Yeah, I'm sure in the art stream they'll start to go over more of how they got from each stage, so you can have that to look forward to. But yeah, for now it's just some quick captures, and we can show where we made some changes in development for gameplay reasons, like that dig site example.
Oh wow! I think this image just shows how. Yeah, go for it.
Well, no, you can sum it up.
Oh,
I mean, this was an. Sorry, this was an intermediate stage between the very early flat plains and the kind of more Hellfirescape. This was to try and give it a bit more form, and you can see right at the bottom there's a placeholder puzzle that was functional at that time, I think. But sorry, what were you going to say? Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, I think it just shows how much impact the skybox and everything has on how it looks. I think it's just impressive. Like, even these two, like, it gives so much more of a mood to the area as a whole. I think it's just really cool.
I think there's a few photos coming up right now, and you can see a little bit of progression on the entrance to the Caradet dig site. Yeah, that was sort of in the middle. This was the very, very beginning, when the sun over the Desert Strike One area would literally blind you. Yeah.
What is that?
That is the giant rocks you now see, which were just sort of sat on top, rather than... And they were missing polycolors, so they were...
Yeah, it just looks like a slime that died and fell apart in all kinds of blobs. Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, obviously you can see how it's at now. It's just trying to understand that mix of, yeah. And then we go into Caradet. I think
It's such a nostalgic hit.
Yeah, like so. Some of these screenshots, I think. I mean, we had a few iterations, but one of them you'll see with some arrows on shortly. And that was myself and Mudbreezy sat down for a bit, and we just went through sort of like Mudbreezy is quite passionate about level design, and we just went through and we discussed like. So we had the bird's eye captures, and we also have some from like the player's perspective, and where if they move their camera to here, like where are their eyes going to be drawn to, what looks like paths and what looks like locations they can go to. There were some places where it looked like there wasn't a wall, but it actually was, and it's just frustrating for the user experience when you're running through and you're like, well, it looks like I can go that way, but I can't. So this is kind of at that stage of the project. We had a good idea of what the site layout was going to be like, so we could start making those finer adjustments. Yeah,
a lot of these things are just moving things 1 or 2 tiles around, isn't it, to just make it feel a bit nicer as well.
Yeah, there's also things like surges and distances like that for gameplay reasons.
Yeah, you can see here as well on this one is in the bottom right there is the pylon anchor, and that's actually just one tile away from the wall of the Praetorium, and then there's also an excavation spot in the way of the door you were going through, so it looked like both sides were pretty blocked off, so you couldn't actually enter it. So then it leads to the question, like, so how do I get in there? And then if you went to the top, you couldn't get back down. Yeah, you can also see here our placeholder models for agility animations, so we can see sort of each key frame of the animation and where the player will sort of sit in the environment, so we don't actually have to. We know where I'll be clipping and etc.
Could you just go back real quick to the previous screenshot? So there's a couple of things here actually worth talking about, but you'll notice there's scaffolding that comes down. Originally, we had it so that you had to like click on that and it sort of transition you down, but we removed it and made it a smooth run through, so you could click down there on the mini map and have the player run down, as well as the arrow that you see at the top is pointing to what you can see as an agility shortcut. We also removed that. You may notice you can just run over that. So these are sort of just examples of when we were doing longevity testing as well, we found that certain places we felt like it's just unnecessary to have certain shortcuts or certain things. We just removed them or cleaned them up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's sort of, it gets to the point where you can start like even though as part of there might not be a key feature available for testing, for example, but like the big red block you saw in one of the images was the Praetorian War Table, and we could start like using that functionality to see where you can interact with it from. So like some of you may know you can actually enter the Praetorium from up the top, and it sort of allows us to understand that and know what's possible.
It makes talking about these things so much easier to do, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, actually, I was going to make a quick point. So what Porky just said there, yeah. So when we've got, it's very hard to visualize what the end product's going to be. So having stuff like this really does help us to discuss designs. And one of the things we did very early on, like right back when we made that first demo, we ordered a bunch of replica Grail diaries, like the one from Indiana Jones 3. And I used mine extensively to make a load of design notes and discussions, a lot with Ryan. I think I tweeted out some images of it last week or the week before, and I've still got that. It's not even half full, but there's a lot of ramblings and crazy drawings in here that I just don't understand now. They're like hieroglyphics.
Ooh, this is a good screenshot. Sorry, didn't want him to progress the screenshot. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll tweet out some more images of it at some point, but yeah.
Make sure to follow Jagex Rowley on Twitter for that. Giving you the shout out, pal.
Thank you.
So this is a paint image that I did, and I can't tell you what everything means because I forgot. But I don't know what REGW means. Maybe I do. I'll have to think about it. But this is Stormguard, and it's a good example of the lines were essentially showing like the barriers where we wanted to have the player. And I think H stands for hotspot. So hotspot 1, hotspot 2, 3. We rearranged the way that these hotspots were placed because I think that's what they were labeled. But yeah, this is... sorry, actually, there is a very good thing about the screenshot. You may notice there's an island in the top right-hand corner. That island is not there in the live game. That is actually the workshop, which we put above the rest of the site versus being in the corner. I'm not sure, Rowley, if you want to elaborate a bit more on what the original plan was.
This was my touch point for this one was Toe Jaminal. So it was supposed to be this incredibly vast space, like map squares. Like we're talking Abana scale here. Like we scaled it back a lot, obviously, for archaeology, but the idea was that you would be able to fly for a very long time, and the one in the top right would be kind of like the level 0 in Toe Jaminal, where you just stumble across this island way out. But I think, eventually we just use that as the kind of stand-in for the workshop until we put it on another level. We were going to do sorts of things with air currents to stop you being able to progress and things like that. But I think I much prefer the design we ended up with. If you... Actually, no, forget what I was going to say. You should talk about this. This is great.
Scored in? Question mark.
Well, when I was making the sort of like system for dealing with flying in areas and swimming underwater at Everlight, I needed some. We didn't have any animations at the time, so I took the lava falls. We can call it a skateboard. It's like a rock that you skate on, and I use that as well instead. So that's currently the wingsuit in this example, and you just get to see. I've just started flying, so I guess I'm sliding down this ramp that you can see here. In the live game, of course, there is all this sorts of difference in height mapping, but you can't see the ground. A bit of an insight into how you can fly in RuneScape.
Funny enough, one of our images coming up will actually show a little bit of the height mapping. Yes, I think it is.
This is this is the first part of Stormguard. You'll notice it hasn't changed. Well, actually, yes, it has. What I'm on about, loads has changed. But this is the starting area when we were originally whiteboxing it. To the far side of this image, we added a lot more, which is where the tailory debris could be found. There's like a whole building there. But this is just a good example of what early Stormguard looked like. I'm trying to sell the dream to everyone that's going to look like this awesome storm citadel, and you're going to fly around. This is what we had. This is what we had to show.
We should. I think if that's the last image, and the next is my favourite area of the whole game, which is our test square.
All right. Oh, there we go.
I love this place. So this image is from quite early on. So there's not very much in it, but what you're seeing here is just all placeholder for every single excavation, and they're kind of separated by site. You can see the letters in the minimap on the top right. But over time, this space is just filled out with pretty much every asset we've got for the skill, and it looks awesome. I think we've got a couple later on.
Yeah, if my images are in here, I took screenshots of like the entire squares that are full of the stuff.
We actually You go.
Well, you can just see I've used this myself just to put in collectors and the kind of gargoyle mystery at the back there. We got Archie really early on as well, which was a good morale boost for the team.
Oh wow, there you go. Yeah, now it's starting to look like something. It's also worth pointing out this square no longer exists in the game either, does it?
This didn't get released, no.
It's in our test environment, but not in.
Yeah. So there's just no way to ever get to that, and that's just a safety precaution, kind of, right? In the case that something weird happens and a player were to end up there, you could do quite a
yeah.
few cool things.
Yeah.
These screenshots are very. Oh,
There we go.
That's the one. Yeah.
This one is rather close to final, isn't it? Or am I
yeah.
wrong?
I took these. So in the last few weeks when I was cleaning up the entire stream and deleting various things that we no longer needed, I took a bunch of screenshots, and these are them. So yeah, this is final. You'll get hopefully the other screenshots are here. So that's actually all the material caches.
We're testing things out. We're testing things out there, like blending into the environments that they sit in with the different colours.
Across the top is all agnostic, and then the other 5 rows are the 5 culture specific.
Mm-hmm. All the weapons and items and things.
Yeah, so all those weapons you might think, there's 2 or 3 or 4 spears, because you've got all your different states of that weapon. So you've got your new state, then when you get the warning message, it'll become untradeable. That's a different weapon behind the scenes, and then the same for destroyed, augmented, the upgraded. So we have all of these as basically as their drop models, what they look like on the ground, which helps for testing as well. Obviously, there's a lot of artifacts there, so you can see how big some of them actually are. But when they actually scale down to your inventory, I think it's kind of cool because it gives you a sense of, you can see what they would have been like in the environment, or if the trophies were hung up.
And then a lot of the kind of environment pieces and hero locks and stuff like that. Like you've got the Hydra head there at the bottom, the big D20 in the back.
Oh wow, I'm only noticing that now. Really, that's pretty cool. I think it's just there's so much that we've done with this skill. It's insane, and seeing all of that just grouped in these small images is just really impressive to me. Was this the last image? Ooh, we've been told that we have to look pretty again. We're going to switch back to the regular cameras. I think we succeeded. We're all looking very pretty.
We're all smiling.
Was that all the images that we've had? That's a lot of images. I think we're also 10 minutes over time, but that's... we're going to try and get one GIF working, so that means I have to talk for quite a while, or
Can I fill something in? Just to clarify, because we mentioned at the beginning of the stream, but the questions came up a few times. The rates, so there was a hotfix earlier today that changed the rates of the Spear of Annihilation and the Inquisitor staff pieces. To clarify, as well as to tell you guys who weren't here earlier, you can get a staff piece from the entire fortress only when the pylon is active. The rate is really, really low, so we have decreased the chance of getting that. However, inside of the Praetorium, you can get the staff regardless if the pylon is active. But if it is active, you have a better chance, and the higher level hotspot you do in there, you have a better chance. However, the rate that it was prior to this hotfix, we have still made it slightly rarer within the Praetorium, but what this means is 99% of staff pieces are going to come from the Praetorium, 1% are going to come from the fortress. Hopefully that clarifies it. We may have to write something a bit more. But ultimately, best place to get staff pieces in the Praetorium.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth repeating, we are still monitoring everything for archaeology, so if we feel like we need to make more changes, and whether that is the staff pieces or anything else in the game, we are keeping an eye out, and we'll see. So that's that. How much longer will our producer need to get a GIF working? Oh, there we go.
It works. Nice. So the white blocks you can see here are is the height mapping, and since you're able to that's sort of the level in which you fly on. So it kind of gives you an idea of where the floor is. And what this GIF was is it was actually one of the interesting bugs we found during development, is that when the GIF is right at the bottom, so the white blocks are sort of halfway in your screen, if you tried to move, you wouldn't be able to. It would just you would constantly get dead clicks, and that's because it was trying to walk you to the tile outside where you would fly on. Yeah, it's an interesting, just one of the interesting bugs during development, and it just gives you a sense of how we understand what the height mapping is like, so you can see the grids, and then we're able to test out the height mapping across the entire site without actually being able to see anything, because of course it's you're flying, right? There's no land, it's air. Yeah, that's what that is. Got a few more like that which we could share on Twitter or social, or yeah.
Cool. All right, yeah. If you've got, go for it.
Just one of the questions in the chat about something we can mention or at least bring up. The people were commenting about the ECB. Is it Eldritch? Is that how you pronounce it? Eldritch crossbow.
Okay.
Just to let people know that I think Modorama was looking at it earlier, so we are looking at it. Don't worry, we are aware. Hopefully, have a fix out soon.
We're working on it. Yeah.
If we're talking about that now as well, then I also did a job today to switch in Volusia's Bandosian 2 and 3 collections the Hobgoblin Mansticker and the Dorgishan Spear. So that should hopefully come out fairly soon.
And to clarify, that's just for Volusia.
It is just for Volusia, yes. The Goblin Generals are as intended.
Cool. Thank you all for coming on. So make sure if you've got questions, feel free to tag them on Twitter or send them a message. So that is Jagex Timbo, Jagex Ryan, Jagex Yago, and Jagex Rowley. They are the core archaeology team, as we call them almost. They are there for your questions. You can find me, Jagex Spooky, but please don't ask me. Well, you can ask me the archaeology questions, but I'll happily tag these people instead. I'm not the expert there. So that's that. I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. It's slightly different, but I think it's pretty cool. Hopefully we'll do one with the art team and the audio team sometime soon as well. Because I think similarly from an from the art and audio side, there is as much to talk about and show, I feel like. If there isn't anything any of you want to say, I'm mainly looking at Brian, you always like to add a couple of things. Nothing from you, Anne, today?
No.
Great. Then there is. Then I'm gonna call off today's stream. So I'm gonna continue with the lovely words from last time. Look after yourselves.
I've got something.
Oh,
I've got
something. Go for it. What do you want to say?
I wanted to say that something that I am currently looking at, just to make people aware that we are still looking at it, is Chronotes and the currency pouch. So something I'm looking into. It's not a quick thing, but just to make people aware, I am doing it. There you are, Luke. It's tradition now.
Yeah, you have to interrupt me. That's fine. Look after yourself, everyone, and